All right, so next up, let's look at questions 24 and 25 for passage 3. Now, the reason I say 24 and 25 is because if we read 24, it says, what can reasonably be inferred about the reason Usher would use northern bald ibises as the subject of his study? This is a pretty broad question, and it doesn't direct us to any specific part of the passage. But if we look down to question 25, it says, which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? And then it gives us 4 very specific quotes, all 5 lines or less, about where we could look to find information that's going to help us answer the previous question. So what we can do is pair these questions together and start with 25, narrow it down to a quote or 2 that feels like it really responds to the question in 24, and then use that really specific evidence to evaluate the choices for 24. So in that vein, let's start with question 25 here and take a look at these quotes and evaluate them for whether or not they give us information about how Usher would use northern bald ibises and why he did that. So we can start here with choice A, lines 3 to 7. And if we scroll up to those lines, we see that they say, a new study of ibises finds that these big-winged birds carefully position their wingtips and sync their flapping, presumably to catch the preceding bird's updraft and save energy during flight. All right, so this one feels pretty good to start off with. We don't have a specific mention of ibises, but we do have some benefits and strengths of these birds. So this might be a good place to start. So I'm going to leave that in contention for now. Let's check out choice B at lines 10 to 12. It says, squadrons of planes can save fuel by flying in a V formation, and many scientists suspect that migrating birds do the same. Okay, so this one's a little bit too general. It starts off with planes, which isn't great, and then it only mentions migrating birds, not ibises specifically. So in terms of answering our question, it's not specific enough, so I'm going to remove this from consideration. How about choice C, lines 22 to 24? So, choice C reads, the study published in Nature took advantage of an existing project to reintroduce endangered northern bald ibises to Europe. So, another good one. This one is even more specific than choice A, and it gives us a benefit, right? They're already being introduced to Europe. Maybe that is an advantage of some kind, that they're already present in the area that he's studying. So, I'm going to leave choice C in as well. Now, let's check out choice D, lines 29 to 31. This says the device's GPS determined each bird's flight position to within 30 centimeters, and an accelerometer showed the timing of the wing flaps. This does not mention ibises at all, and really just talks about the materials that Usherwood was using in this study. So D is also fine to take off the table. Now, we've narrowed it down to A and C, so our next step is to go back to 24 and see if we can find a match. Sometime if I can't narrow the quote perfectly down to one answer when I'm doing these paired questions, I'll compare both and just see which one has a better match in the previous question, because ultimately both of these answers need to be right together. So let's start with choice A, which, as a reminder, right, talked about the study and what they learned in the study, right? So if we look at question 24, that says the ibises were well acquainted with their migration route. Choice A doesn't really talk about migration route, so it's not going to match up with that. Usherwood knew the ibises were familiar with carrying data loggers during migration. Again, doesn't mention data loggers in this quote. How about choice C, which says the ibises have a body design that is similar to that of a modern airplane. This quote doesn't talk about body design at all, and it definitely doesn't compare them to modern airplanes. And then choice D, the ibises were easily accessible for Usherwood and his team to track and observe. This might be true. I'm thinking of choice C now, but it's not reflected in the quote that we're looking at. So by going through this process of elimination, while A might be an okay answer for 25 in isolation, it doesn't have a good match up here in 24, so we can take it off. So now we're going to lock in choice C as our answer for 25 and see if we can find one. Now, we've already read through these, and I remember that choice C talks specifically about how the ibises were already present in Europe. So that, for me, most closely aligns with choice D, right? The ibises were easily accessible because there was an already ongoing study. So I found a good match for choice C in choice D up here, and with that good match, I can lock in both of these answers for 24 and 25.